England. Ministers hope pushing back the reopening will allow more people to be vaccinated to protect against the Delta variant. A long-awaited report into the death of private investigator Daniel Morgan is due to be released. The weather fine and warm for many, but some rain for northwestern areas, a high of 25 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Joanne Webb. On the M25, there are delays anti-clockwise to junction 11 at Chertsey, and that's because a car has broken down and one lane is closed. In Clapham, the A3 Clapham Common North side is closed southbound at Cedars Road, and that's because of an accident. In Vauxhall, 9 Elms Lane remains closed in both directions because of an ongoing investigation, and there are long delays in the area. Queues on the A12 southbound to the M25 junction. In fact, those delays about half an hour, and that's because of an accident. And on the trains, there are problems still on South Western Railway services, delay between Waterloo and Clapham Junction, and the Jubilee line is suspended between Stratford and North Greenwich.
LBC at Iceland. Call Nick Ferrari now. 0345 6060 973. LBC.
9 minutes before 8 is the time. Back to your reactions to the news we heard from the Prime Minister in a moment, but they will be informed by our next guest, who's Cabinet Office Minister Michael Gove, who joins me now. Thank you for coming on the show, Mr Gove. You said that you would put money on us actually meeting or hitting that June date. Why were you so wrong? Good morning.
Hi, Nick. Well, as Yogi Berra said, I never make predictions, especially about the future.
But you did, respectfully, Mike.
Well, there were some words attributed to me, and indeed, we were hopeful, and we did want very much to be able to have more restrictions lifted on the 21st. But this Delta variant has proved a particular problem, and we are taking just a little bit of extra time to make sure that more people are vaccinated before opening up further.
You say a little bit of extra time. Can you tell us that it will be a month, and then after that date in July, we can cry freedom, Mr Gove?
Well, there are significant freedoms that we enjoy at the moment, but not obviously we want to lift as many restrictions as possible. And I hope then, and I'm confident then, that we will be able to move to stage 4 and a far, far, far greater degree of freedom. Now, it may be the case that there is a bizarre, unprecedented event, but all the pointers, all the data, all the evidence suggests that we can, with confidence, expect that the number of people vaccinated by the 19th of July will be sufficient to allow us to open up fully.
You can understand some of my listeners, Mr Gove, are getting a little bit weary. Last July, they were told that if we behaved ourselves, we might have Christmas. November last year, if we behave ourselves, we might have Easter. Here we find ourselves in the middle the middle of June, and we're not really looking at freedom until July. What would you say to them? Some of them are rather despondent.
Believe me, I can understand that. No, I think life's been
respectfully,
tough.
you still get, I don't mean this personally, but you and your colleagues still get paid. I hear from publicans, photographers, wedding industry, they're not getting paid, Mr Gove.
Oh, no. Look, I think that's entirely fair, Nick. Look, I'm in a relatively comfortable position.
As am I. Yep.
But I'm paid by the taxpayer. But there are people whom I talk to, my constituents, who are in exactly the position that you mentioned. Freelancers who've had a very tough time, people who've been laid off. And it's also the case that, families have had to suffer not just, losing loved ones, but also really tough economic pressures. But the only thing I would say is that's why we've been so anxious to drive forward the vaccination programme, because the more people who are vaccinated, the quicker we can get back to normal.
All right. On the subject of the vaccination, I'm sure you were listening carefully to the Prime Minister's words, as was I last night. He said this.
Sadly, a proportion of the elderly and vulnerable may still succumb even if they have had 2 jabs.
So even though they've been vaccinated twice, they're still going to die?
Well, it is the case that no vaccine provides 100% protection all the time. But it is the case that you have much, much, much better protection against either catching the virus or falling ill if you have 2 vaccines. But regrettably, and we've always known this, vaccines don't provide that total 100% end-to-end protection.
This Delta or Indian strain, how did it grab hold, Mr. Gove?
Well, it's always the case that when you have viruses that they can mutate, that there are variations, and this particular Delta variant is significantly more transmissible even than the Kent variant that we had before, and that's why we have to take the steps that we do.
Which is the Kent? Is that the alpha one? I get confused with these Greek letters. That's the alpha one, is it? Why do we have to use Greek letters, by the way, Mr. Gove?
I'm not sure, actually. It's a very good question. I don't know.
It seems bizarre. It seems so much... As one journalist to another, it's so much easier to say it from where it comes from. Some would argue that the government should have locked down from India. India should have been put... the borders closed far sooner. Do you subscribe to that view, Mr. Gove?
Well, you can only take a decision based on the evidence that you've got at the time. And so we can all look back and think, if only. But... we took the decision to put India on the red list before the Delta variant was a variant under investigation, before it was designated as a variant of concern.
Can I move you to other areas? How nervous should I be of some kind of trade war as a result of this sausage war that I read about?
You shouldn't be. I'm confident that we and our friends in the European Union will navigate these choppy waters. The Prime Minister has been absolutely right to point out that people in Northern Ireland should have the right to be able to eat produce from the rest of the UK. And there are pragmatic ways forward, and we've just got to work at making sure that they work.
Can I put it to you, Mr. Gove, noting that our friends in the European Union want to bring in inspection levels at an extraordinary rate compared to goods arriving from elsewhere in the world. And I buy that other goods go through at an inspection rate from other countries of about 2 to 5. This is 98%. Given that, but why would we ever sign a protocol that would allow our friends in the European Union to do it in the first place?
Well, the thing about the protocol is that it contains within it mechanisms, various committees that are there to ensure that it works in everyone's interests. And in fact, it's also the case the protocol says that if there's severe societal or economic difficulties, then it can be suspended. Now, we don't want to go there, but the thing about it is that it's a balanced document. And as I say, there are some people in the European Union who get on their high horse about it, but there are others who are determined to make it work.
But we shouldn't have left the door open on that, should we? With hindsight, the protocol should not have contained that opportunity to our friends in the European Union, should it?
Well, I like to think the best of people, and
quite
therefore.
The question.
No, but I think that we want to make sure that we work with people in the European Union who are determined to make the protocol work in Northern Ireland as well. And the chances of, overall, the art of diplomacy, not that I'm particularly good at it, but the art of diplomacy is, trying to be clear about what you want, but not being too, not throwing your weight around, but, being reasonable to get to a good outcome.
So you're no good at betting. You're not particularly diplomatic. What is your skill set, Mr. Gove?
I think it's actually, I think it's my capacity to pick the right football team.
We'll talk about that in just a moment. Lastly, though, because the level of inspection, we should not have signed the protocol to allow our European Union friends to deliver now at the level they are requesting for these checks, should we? With hindsight being perfect, 2020 vision.
Well, I prefer to look forward, and I think that actually we'll be in a position where we can sort this out.
OK. Last couple of matters. They had a barbecue down in Cornwall on the weekend, various world leaders. Did you attend?
No.
Do you think it was a rather bad look that more than 30 people enjoyed that event?
Well, the G7's a unique event.
So someone's wedding.
Advice was given and taken on how to make sure that it was COVID secure, that it was as safe as possible. Right. But also, when you've got people coming together in order to accelerate the vaccination programme, to take decisions on how to prevent future pandemics, to make sure that we're doing the right thing on climate change and so on. No, they didn't break the law, but I think it's important that we
38 it's people, Mr. Gove?
It's important that we recognise that diplomacy advances best when you have that opportunity for people to talk to each other candidly.
Yes, but if in the unlikely event that the person in my life I wanted to marry her, I wouldn't be able to have done it, would I? I'd have 38 people without being fined.
Well, it's now the case, Nick, that if you do want to get married, that wedding venues are now able to have more than 30 people there.
Not this weekend.
No, but coming, from the 21st.
People plan their weddings. They don't necessarily want to plan them by government diktat. I don't need to tell you that.
No,
Mr.
quite.
Gove.
No. No, absolutely. That's why we've done everything we can, looking specifically at weddings, to try to provide a greater degree of relaxation and flexibility. And so, there are restrictions. If you have your wedding inside, then it will be table service. But it is the case that the restrictions on numbers have been lifted.
OK, last couple of questions. When the England team takes the knee, is it gesture politics in your book, Mr. Gove?
No, I think that if people want to show the strength of their feeling in that way against prejudice, that's entirely respectable.
So your colleague Priti Patel is wrong on that?
Well, I think the main thing is that we should be cheering on our teams. I mean, I'll be cheering on Scotland on Friday against England, but that doesn't mean that I have anything other than respect for the England and Scotland players. They are gifted young professionals, and we should respect the autonomy of their view.
Battle of Britain on Friday, England v Scotland. Obviously, you're going to cheer on Scotland, I'm not surprised. You got a score prediction?
3-0 to Scotland.
3-0 to Scotland. I'll give you odds if you like. I'm going to bet you that England will, even because I know you're hopeless at betting. How about £100, which goes to the charity of either one's choosing, but I'll give you 3-1. I'll give you 3-1 that it's not 3-0 to Scotland. So I'll have to give you 300 quid. If England win, you have to give me 100 quid and we'll choose our charities. What say you, Mr. Gove?
Done.
There we are. With your betting record, I look forward to spending the money. Thank you, Mr. Gove. I'll be watching with great interest on the day, 1 minute after 8 here on LBC, where news is next.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 8 o'clock, the government says it's confident there won't need to be a further delay to lifting all remaining COVID restrictions in England. Boris Johnson has postponed the final